What's going on? Due to a couple questions that I've recently gotten in my comments regarding the push-pull leg split, I am going to go through kind of how I would set it up from beginner to intermediate. That's kind of what this entire, how I split these things up kind of works in, as well as being able to manipulate that split into 3, 4, 5 day splits, and kind of go over a couple of other just small things that might be good to know. But first thing I wanted to give a little caveat on is I do not like to just tell you what exercises to do. I will give you the type of movement that you will want to do, but I won't ever give a specific exercise because different exercises speak differently to different people. And I don't think it would be as useful for you to know these things if I just told you every little thing to do and then you not really have to think or figure things out for yourself. So just wanted to start with that. And then a couple other things. It's going to be easy to manipulate these days to kind of however you want it to be and easy to bias it, like certain muscle groups if you want to try to maybe bring up certain muscle groups over others. So one other thing is all intensity is going to be consistent, and then all rep ranges are going to be the exact same for this. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Oops. And to the end, we got to start from the beginning, fam. So push-pull legs, pretty simple, pretty easy to set up, very self-explanatory. And truth be told, it is a split that can last you until the end of time, as long as you just know how to manipulate it to fit certain, like whatever your training schedule is, right? So the first thing I want to kind of get into here is like, don't think that you have to have your lifts all set up on some arbitrary amount of time, like a 7-day split. There's been many times where I run 10-day splits just because, one, it's easier to, manage like maybe certain muscle groups I'm trying to bring up while also allowing me to be able to recover effective immediately. And one of the big examples I think of, just like an example of why it really, like, as long as you're consistent and you're hitting muscles enough to grow, but also enough to be able to recover from, Hunter Labrada, pro bodybuilder, like been like top 5 at the Olympia multiple times, but he trains quads or legs like once, at least his last prep or 2 preps ago or something. He trained them like once every like 8 to 10 days because the amount of stimulus he was getting from those sessions was so much that he needed that much time to recover. So just think about it like this. Do not think you have to split everything up into exactly 7 days. You can certainly do 8-day, 10-day splits and be totally fine. So now this first one is just 3 days per week. Day 1 being push, day 2 being pull, day 3 being legs. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Now, for a beginner, I would not do 6 days a week. I feel like a lot of people, whenever you first get in, you really love the gym. And so you're just like, I just need to go 6 days a week so I can push twice, pull twice, and legs twice. I would argue maybe run that to more of a 10-day deal so that you can do like push day, day off, pull day, day off, leg day, day off, and then just do that rotation. Or push, pull, push, pull, day off, legs, day off, push, pull, and then a day off in legs, and then 2 days off to make sure you're getting enough recovery. So on day 1 on your push days, you're going to do 2 horizontal presses. So flat bench press, machine press, etc. Now for, I guess, a second horizontal press, you could maybe do something like pec deck fly, but usually in the case of a beginner, and most people are just wanting to put more overall mass, they're not necessarily competing in bodybuilding. So that's whenever I would argue maybe compound exercise might be more worth your time. Not that you can't get the same results with only isolation exercises, but nobody has the time to spend 3 hours in the gym for every single training session. So first 2 horizontal presses, compound movements, focus on those, go hard. Your time, by the way, your reps in reserve, your RIR is going to be 0 to 2 reps. So, anywhere from absolute failure to 2 reps left in the tank. 3 sets of 8 to 15 reps in for each set. So back to the lifts. For your second horizontal press or your first, either way, incline presses do kind of count on this as long as it doesn't basically keep it at like 45 degrees and below, just for the sake of it being easy. Then you're going to move into a vertical press. This is going to be dumbbell press, shoulder press, or military press, machine presses, whatever. Seated, standing, you can do it however you want. I usually think seated's better just because your base of support is better. You have a little bit more stability so you can drive more force output through your shoulder. And then you're going to go lateral delts. For these, I personally prefer to do cable. I cannot freaking talk right now, but you know what I'm saying. Cable, lateral delt raises. So the reason I like these more than dumbbell, not that dumbbell don't work, but for a cable, you have resistance through the entire range of motion, whereas with a dumbbell, you're only relying on gravity. And really, let's be honest, the lift doesn't really get that hard till you get about to right here. And then up to here, it's maximum hard. So you're like, most tension is only through this range. Whereas if you have a cable, you can literally have through the entire range of motion, and there is always constant tension pulling on the muscle. After lateral delts, we're going to move to triceps. Tricep, you can literally do any tricep exercise, any tricep isolation exercises. Also, feel free to rearrange these in whatever way that you want. So let's say I wanted to keep the exercises the same, but maybe I wanted to focus, I just wanted to get a little bit more stimulus out of my lateral delts. In that case, you just move it up first. And then you have the most energy to put into delts, which is going to be the most stimulus that you can get, and then subsequently just go on down the list. Day 2 is a pull day, so you're going to start with a vertical pull, pull-ups, pull-downs, etc., into a horizontal pull, so machine row, cable row, any sort of row, and then a single arm row. Why single arm? To be honest, I feel like I personally get a lot more stimulus using one arm at a time because I can usually use my other arm to brace and provide a counterforce against something, so it provides more stability so that I can drive more force through the muscles that I'm using. I also think it is a good health thing or something to do for your body because whenever you're loaded only on one side, you are working other muscles that can force you to stabilize. And not that you would need that for bodybuilding, but for most people, I still think that is a valuable thing to understand and to know how to brace different parts of your body so that you can move through other areas of your body. And then you're going to move into a rear delt exercise. So pec deck fly, bent over cable, rear delt flies, chest supported rear delt flies. Can't go a whole face pulls. Can't really go wrong with any of them. And then bicep curls, any type of bicep curl. Now for legs, for beginners, even early intermediates, I don't like to necessarily just isolate specific muscle groups. I like to do more movement based. So a squat pattern, a hinge pattern, which is like a deadlift of some kind, a hamstring isolation, just because, the hamstrings are the biceps of the legs. We want big hamstrings. It makes everything look bigger. And then a single leg exercise of some kind, and then calves. Now, why would I prefer to do patterns, like movement patterns, as opposed to necessarily just strictly muscle groups? There, in actually a recent comment on my 2 videos ago, I think, Paul, I think his name is, shout out Paul, but he mentioned something about the value of, training in a way that a lot of athletes would as a means to get to, say, a hypertrophy goal. And I think that, he makes a good point where if you can learn how to actually move the body in a, quote, functional way, it does make it easier to be able to drive stimulus to other muscle groups more efficiently. So I do think there's value in learning these patterns because whenever you can get a better sense of how your body moves through space, you then get a better sense of how to directly stimulate muscles and how to bias certain movements and load certain movements in order to get the type of response that you want from the weight that you're using. So now let's go on to how a 4-day split for this would look. I would split this up into 8-ish days. So day 1 being push, same setup as before. Day 2 being a pull day. Day 3 is legs, same type of thing. Day 4 being a push-pull hybrid day. So you're going to do a horizontal press and a horizontal row, a vertical press and a vertical row, tricep extensions and bicep extensions. Now, if you wanted to hit more shoulder, once again, you can add it in to day 4. You can add an extra exercise into day 1. You can add it even on leg day if you really wanted to. You can mix and match these things, take sets back, but also understand every time you do that, you are taking away from muscle growth in other areas. So just make sure that whatever you are trying to accomplish, whatever your goal is, if it's, you want to bring up shoulders, make sure you are prioritizing those but also putting them in other areas where maybe you can make it work, at least if you don't want to sacrifice potential gains on other areas of your body. But there's always going to be some form of sacrifice in one way or another. And then if you wanted to say, well, I would like to do legs again, then you just rest a day after day 4. You do legs again, and then you rest a day, and then you go back through this whole thing. So now we'll look at 5 days. So push, day 1 push, 2 pull, 3 legs, 4 push pull, and then day 5 legs. That's very similar to the 4 days before. Or you could also maybe do something like back on the 4 days, like right here, you could even do a push-pull day off, and then a legs, day off, and then a push-pull day again, day off. So you could actually do day 4 for day 1, and then legs on day 2, and then push-pull again for 3, and then for day 4, legs again, which would almost actually just turn into an upper-lower split. So, and then the obvious next step, as you wanted to advance, would be to do 6 days, but in that case, I would literally just alternate push-pull legs for all 6 days of the week.